On the topic of longevity with games, Pokemon having 25 years is incredible, and we see that Nintendo is very good to their games that last a long time. Obviously, we've seen so many re-releases and remakes and just continuations of series, and obviously the music is another aspect of Nintendo, not just the graphics that they continue to push within the capabilities of their consoles.
Oh, I fucking love the Breath of the Wild soundtrack. That shit's amazing.
It's incredible. It's magic. I sometimes feel we buy these games more so for the soundtrack than the story nowadays.
Oh, 100%. Because a good soundtrack can really pull the story together. Honestly, like the soundtrack really helps to elevate those highs and lows that we see in the story. Just oh god, uh,
I agree with you
I
fully,
love
man.
that point.
Oh, that's something I love about them as well. Do you think that Nintendo will continue to go in this direction where they're putting more emphasis into the immersiveness of a game? Are soundtracks going to start getting bigger and better? Are they going to start bringing in new blood to start composing and doing new soundtracks? Because you can only go so far with graphics on Nintendo. You can't really compete with like Sony or Microsoft unless you're going for a particular aesthetic. But the music that they have is bar none.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Honestly, I think new composers and musicians should be brought into like Nintendo series, mostly because it's amazing the soundtracks and the music that we hear now, but eventually like these people are going to want to retire. Like they're going to want to take a step back, and people are going to have to fill in the void once they do. So it's one of those things like I really believe that they should go bigger with their soundtracks and try to really tie them into their games because fucking phenomenal, man. They're great. I I find myself listening again to the Breath of the Wild soundtrack so often, and I know this isn't Nintendo, but like man, pretty sure I brought up Persona earlier. I
Yeah.
fucking love that soundtrack as well. Like those are great.
Let's talk about other RPGs that you play because we're talking about Persona now. Please tell me everything that you're playing or anything that you've played in the past that you love that is turn-based or even if it's not an RPG.
Do you mind if I have a look at my game library as I do this? Because I
Go
feel like
ahead.
I feel like there's a few.
No, please go
uh,
ahead.
so when it comes to my favorite turn-based games, okay. So I'd have to say that Persona is up there. I love the hell out of fucking Persona 4 and 3. I loved Shin Megami Tensei 4. I wanted to play Apocrypha, but I didn't ever pick it up, and I can't remember why, but I was probably just fucking broke. I don't know. So I love the Persona series. Disgaea is another turn-based game that I love, but it's more grid-based and tactical, like Fire Emblem, which is another series.
Mm-hmm.
Could love that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we got Final Fantasy. I got a special place in my heart for 10. I really do. I mean, it goes without saying because, like we mentioned earlier, but fucking Pokemon. I mean, I just have to put that out there.
Yeah.
Fucking Pokemon. The XCOM series, I love as well, and I'm having trouble kind of remembering others. But then again, I have thrown out more series than specific titles. So yeah.
Okay, so how about this? I personally look at games at the same level as cinema now, if not very, very close to it. The
Oh,
budget's getting higher. Everyone looks like more people are excited for games than movies, I find, especially now that we haven't had a movie experience in like a year.
I love the joke. The Sonic movie was the best movie of 2020 because there was no other movies.
Who
Uh,
would have thought that Sonic would have been the best movie of 2020? It wasn't a bad movie though. I liked it
yeah,
for what it was. I
it
liked it.
was it. Okay, how do I put this? It could have been a train wreck. They could have used the original model.
What a kind way of putting that. Now, but see, that's exactly what I'm saying. We're now at a point where you can take a video game IP and you have to pay attention to what the fans are saying. Like as crazy as Twitter can be, I think that was a perfect example of a fan base that can have their voice collectively heard, and now the product ended up becoming something that was worth all the extra effort and the public beating that they got, because Sonic will now stand the test of time as a video game adaptation that could set up a world. It wasn't a bad movie by any means. They're
Oh,
going to know how to properly bring a video game character into real life settings. Like,
oh, 100%. I mean they did well enough that we're going to have another Sonic movie. So like
exactly.
that's they did well. And it's just such a passionate fan base as well that was able to like get the producers to realize you can't have Sonic look that like the
Not at
wonky
all.
eyes and teeth. You can't do that.
Not at all. That was weird. Like I can understand where they were coming from when they wanted to make him realistic, but how realistic do you have to make a fast running blue hedgehog that can speak, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
you're allowed to take liberties, and I'm
Eh,
happy that Hollywood learned that lesson.
Exactly. And I mean it really felt like the Sonic team, Hollywood was just like, "Oh my god, Detective Pikachu turned out great. Let's try and repeat this." And man, Detective Pikachu was also a really good movie.
Yeah, that was also solid. I didn't
I
expect that, honestly.
I didn't either, but now I 100% internalize Pikachu's like inner monologue as Ryan Reynolds.
That's another thing. You have these big name actors who, for all intents and purposes, it seems like they are actually fans of the franchises that they're signing on to. And they are passionate. They want these things to work. They're going to be a voice that you can put to these fictional characters. And we need more of that. Like, I can only imagine what a modern Silent Hill movie done right would be like. I can imagine what a
Oh
Megaman
god.
movie would look
It
like. That's something the fans definitely deserve.
a Silent Hill movie would probably be a really really amazing like horror movie, like fucking fantastic, man. It'd be great. Um, Mega Man movie. I never thought about that.
I just want Mega Man to come back. Like to bring it back to Pokemon a little bit. There were a lot of like side Pokemon games that just weren't great, but like you can always see that they were trying to do something different. Like Pokemon Snap wasn't the best game, but it was still an entertaining game, and it
Oh
had
yeah.
it had a cult fan base, and now they're going with a new version of it. Like things like that, I like. I like when a company can see that you're not always going to hit, but if there is a vocal fan base, especially today on the internet, where every day they're clamoring to have a new rendition or like a new addition into the series, you should listen to them. You should do something about it. And Mega Man needs that. Like I think Mega Man is one of those series that for some reason they just didn't know how to bring it into the 21st century properly.
I can understand that. I mean, and there's a pretty big gap between Mega Man 10 and 11, right? Like so much so that like comparing the two, it's just a completely different like art style, new like engine. It, it's a huge leap.
Yeah, and that's something you also need to be aware of. Like it's great that you can advance your game, you can add more to it, but there needs to be some form of familiarity, right? Especially when you go 5 years in between because you couldn't have done all of those incremental upgrades and kind of gradually changed like the pace of the game. Gen 1 of Pokemon doesn't feel like the current gen at all. But at the same time, there is familiarity in how it's played, and you've seen the changes over time. So whether the same way you picked it up in Gen 5 or I've been playing since Gen 1, we can hop into a most recent game and we can kind of vibe with it.